Welcome to the Ultimate Bloons TD6 strategy series, where I'm going to be showing you strategies for every single tower from the Dart Monkey to the Beast Handler and every single path in between. This will show you how to diversify your setup and get better, along with seeing some stats, tips and tricks, and all of the strategies for every single one of the towers. And although that the series is geared more towards Chimps mode, this will also show you a lot of tips and tricks that apply to the standard game and will allow you to win with a new style. So our next hero is Ezili, and Ezili is definitely an interesting one. There's a lot to talk about Ezili, so let's get right into this. So starting off, Ezili is an interesting choice, and it's not like the first choice that you'd have. You'd probably use her just to use the quirks at first. So let's take a look at the levels first of all. First, you have level 3, which is Heartstopper. This is actually pretty useful if you're using Ezili. It will stop the purples from being an issue, and you'll probably be using towers that are weak to purples with that. And then after level 3, we have level 8 and level 9, which will allow Ezili to deal more damage to Moabs, and then level 9 will strip the camos and regrows and all that stuff. And then level 10 is really the big level. This is kind of the whole point of Ezili. It's kind of like Pat Fusty, where there's a few key levels. So we'll talk about the Moab Hex a lot more later on. And then level 11 will increase the stats for, Pierce to Necromancers, which is really nice. Unfortunately, I think it's bugged. It doesn't work for the Prince of Darkness zombie BFBs and Moabs, but that's alright. And then level 20 all the way down there is something that I will talk about later, which is where Moab Hex will be used to destroy the bad. Unfortunately, in a lot of Chimps games, you really won't get this. So the hero XP is 1.435x, which is pretty slow, so you aren't going to be getting level 20 without spending a considerable amount of cash on most maps. And then as for the damage and buffs, you really don't want to buff her with anything. She does a little bit of damage. It's a little bit better when it comes to Moabs. You can take out a fair decent amount of Moabs, but to regular Bloons, it's really nothing special. In the early game, she might be able to help out with popping some of the camos, but really all of her damage is from Moab Hex and the buffs that you'll get to the Necromancer and Prince of Darkness synergy. So with this, it's really kind of limited in combination. And then there was something that I wanted to try, so I guess I'll show you this, because why not? I never actually tried outbuffing Ezili. Whenever I used Ezili, it was just Ezili on her own. So I decided to see, is outbuff actually worth it, just a tier 3? And the answer is that it gave a sizable increase, but comparatively, it's not worth it. You're probably better off spending your money elsewhere. Only about 10,000 more damage, so 8%-ish increase. So for the strategies that you'd want to use Ezili with, Prince of Darkness is great. You're going to be getting the Pierce buff for Prince of Darkness just on the regular Bloons, but that's actually still really good because a lot of the damage still comes from there, and also the Hex works really well. And then other kind of more cleanup towers, because Ezili is going to be more specialized at taking out the ZOMGs or fortified BFBs with the Hex. That's where it's going to be good. So just stuff like that. The pros is that it has unique gameplay and destroys ZOMGs. The cons, it has high skill level and the strategies are very specific. So overall, you're going to be using Ezili just for the very specific strategies or for the quirks, and for the objectives, we're going to be looking at Ezili round 100, Ezili mid-game save-up, which is a pretty big thing that we're going to take a look at, and then Ezili and Prince of Darkness. So first of all, I'm going into this run. For some reason, I did not get the first 47 rounds of footage, which kind of stink, but I just got Ezili down pretty early. Ezili doesn't really do a whole lot, so it's not the biggest deal getting her super early. Unless you're trying to get level 100 and spending the cash, then you're going to save money by getting Ezili down earlier. But after that, I got my Prince of Darkness up. I was able to beat round 40 with the the Necromancer, and then a Moab Mauler. Sometimes it's just inconsistent taking out the Moab if you don't get a lot of graveyard. So just that Moab Mauler really helped and made it more consistent. And now I got that more glaives, and I'll be going for the Glaive Lord and the Prince of Darkness. When you have Ezili, you can actually get generally the Prince of Darkness pretty early, which is really nice. So I was able to get that up. especially on this map, Haunted Mansion, I think is the name of it. This is a pretty tricky map, and the Necromancer worked out pretty well. Unfortunately, I had to retarget it, so it went like this kind of straight line, which does work out pretty well. So with some manual retargeting, your Necromancer and Ezili combo should be really, really good. Get it into Prince of Darkness, and then the Hex will synergize perfectly with it, because the Hex, I didn't really mention this before because there wasn't enough time, but the Hex is really, really good at taking out like the higher tier balloons. Not specifically DDTs, I guess it could, but the DDTs move so fast, so it's not like the Hex will do much. But on ZOMGs, like fortified BFBs, the Hex is just going to absolutely take them out. And the Hex will go based on Ezili's targeting. So you could either set Ezili to first, so it takes out the first target, and then jump to the next one, and keep going, or you can set it to strong, so you can try to focus in more on taking out the ZOMGs and the BFBs. Most of the time, if you time it really well, strong will be better, but there's situations where if you're even better and you really know what you're doing, you can jump from first like to strong and back. Generally, it's just a really high skill level tower. You can use it certainly with like low skill just by having it on strong and hitting the button when the strongest balloon is pretty weak, because it's gonna do 10% of the damage until it's taken out, and then there won't be any children left, which is kind of the whole point, and then it goes on to the next one. So if you can time it right, it will Hex jump and go all the way from one target to the other, and it will just delete everything. I'll have an example of that later on. Anyways, with this, I was able to get my Glaive Lord up, which is really nice, and then I can support that all. And now you can see here, this is where like Ezili really comes in. This strategy is pretty weak to these ZOMGs, like around 87, 85. They were pretty tricky, but with the Ezili, you can just use that Moab Hex, and on the ZOMGs, they get taken out really well. So it's just general strategies that are really weak to like these ZOMGs, which aren't really that common, but in some cases you can have one where that is the case, and Ezili would work that well. So I kind of mentioned it before, but the cases that you're going to actually be using for like real strategical like reasons are pretty rare, but it's good to know it. And if you want to have some fun with some cool quirky gameplay, I guess you can do that. So anyways, as you can see there, you just use it when those ZOMGs are starting to get weak. On strong, it just goes one after another and wipes them all out. Round 98 got taken out pretty easy with that, but this is where you get an issue. As you can see, I don't even have money for level 20 Ezili. If I had like 1k more, I could have gotten it, but it is very expensive. In fact, it was cheaper to get a Moab Eliminator on an advanced map. So when you're going on intermediate or even beginner map, there's pretty much no way you're going to be getting level 20 for a more cost-effective method. It really only is cost-effective to get level 20 Ezili on expert maps, which is a bit of a downside. Anyways, let's take a look at this idea of the Hex jumping. So again, as I mentioned before, it's the idea where you just have Ezili set on first, or you could do still set on strong to kind of make it generally a little more consistent, and then you wait until they're weak. So I have all these BFBs weak, and then I can just pinpoint my damage and take them all out, and hopefully you get at least most of them. Like I got most of the BFBs there on round 91 just done, so that's kind of how it works. You can use this in several applications. You could obviously have Ezili just on strong and have like whatever cleanup you have taking out everything else, and then when it comes to the ZOMGs or BFBs, the Hex goes, and as they're weakened with some kind of tower that will damage specifically more of them, like if you have something set on strong, then it will just jump through and take out all of the very heavy targets, which would allow you to beat rounds. This might seem a little complicated, and I guess it is, because it is a more high skill tower unit. You don't really see like a lot of this gameplay being used, and I guess that's really why Ezili's a less popular hero. Anyways, here's another situation that's probably a little bit more common and you'd understand it more. This is using Ezili to save up. So one advantage that Ezili has that no other hero has is that it allows you to do mid-game save ups into like all the way until round 90-ish. So that's very late. You can get a lot of money, and you could make your Chimps games a lot safer with this in a way, which is an example that I'm going to be showing. So we're going to be going for Bez and using Ezili to do this, which is pretty cool. So Bez is an expensive tower, however, it's extremely strong once you get it. This being said, you really need to save up quite early in order to get that high reward tower. So like you do a hard mid-game save up to get an extremely easy late game, but with Ezili you can kind of take that and make it so you can have a easy mid-game save up, easy early game, and easy late game, which is really cool by using Bez and Ezili. And this is because Ezili makes round 85 and 87 really easy with the Hex. As I said, Ezili's great at taking out the ZOMGs, so if you have Ezili taking out that round 85 and 87 ZOMGs, you can make the late game last longer, which gives me way more leeway in the mid game. So I can spend like quite a lot of money, have a very comfortable mid game, then bring Ezili in to take out 85, 87, go into 88, 89 if I need to, and then I can get my Bez and go into the late game and have a super easy time. The one thing to note about this is that you will have to beat round 90, the DDTs on round 90, without an MIB. So if you need an MIB, that needs to be taken into account for. Because of that, I'm going to get something that will be able to at least deal with round 90, but also make the mid game super easy. So I just have my Bads, I have a Necromancer, the Ezili there, and I have a Dark Knight. So this, I just set all these towers down. They're going to be going through the mid game super easy. It's expensive, so we aren't going to be getting the Bez super early, but it will be delayed until Ezili will be able to come in, save the day, and then I can get the Bez, beat round 90 with that Dark Knight, so that's going to be super chill. And then after that, I'm going to have my Bez, and then I can get MIB, all sorts of that stuff. The late game's going to be super easy because I have Bez. So if you kind of understood what that whole idea was, then you could try using Ezili to do some pretty crazy things. You can take this to more like even expensive towers that really you wouldn't typically get if you want to try to do a fun challenge, which is really cool. Ezili and the the Plasma Accelerator could be pretty cool. You could do some funky stuff with that and go all the way to Ray of Doom fairly easily, so that's pretty neat. And as you can see here, round 87 just absolutely destroyed. If Ezili wasn't there, if you had like any other hero like Sai, you'd be completely smoked by that round. And with that, I was able to get my Bez super easily. Just use that Ezili Hex and Heartstopper on the DDTs. Those were able to go down with Dark Knight, got the MIB, and now everything's super easy. Like, this was an extremely chill and laid back game of Chimps on a fairly difficult, maybe not like the most difficult, but fairly tricky intermediate map. And I was using a tower that's typically considered hard to use, a hero that's typically considered hard to use, but when I use them together, it was actually like really easy, no issues. I can use my abilities if I want to, didn't really have to. That will make 98 a bit easier, I guess. 100 goes down, not a problem. So yeah, that I guess is kind of Ezili.
Thanks for watching. If you want to help out the channel, you can check out these new videos, like and subscribe for more content, support the channel by becoming a member, and joining the Discord to chat with the community. Bye!